First, we had the $3 function generator kit, which produces three different shapes: the square, the sine, and the triangular wave. Then we had the $2, and this was not a kit. This was pre-assembled. This produces a square wave, PWM, and that was it. So we looked at that one. And now we have another kit. This is the $1, I think it's $1.25. This also does three different waves. It does the square, sine, and triangular. I will go put it together. We'll come back and we'll see how it works. Here we have the board all soldered together. It takes 9 volts input, at least that's the recommendation. It'll actually theoretically do 6 to 12, but they recommend 9. Here is the output, and that goes over to our oscilloscope. This I was hoping was a frequency adjust, but it's an amplitude out adjustment. There is no frequency adjust. It's a single frequency device. I have not really scoured the diagram very well, but I assume that with some changes to the resistors, it could probably be made to change frequency. What else? Yeah, it has a square wave, a sawtooth, a triangular wave, and a sine wave, depending on where you put the jumpers. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's zoom out. First, let's do the smoke test. I'll snap it on. Power supply's on. As you notice, there's no indication that it's running. I can see over here on the oscilloscope off to the side that that's on. But yeah, okay, so let's zoom out and take a look at the oscilloscope and see what's happening with this. Here we have it connected to the oscilloscope, and you can see this is the square wave. Now, normally I have the sensitivity set to 1 volt, but today I've got it at 0.1 volts for this device because the output is rather weak. So what's interesting here? Well, the voltage peak to peak is 0.84 volts. The frequency is 1.27588 something. It's fluctuating a little bit. Duty cycle is 51%. The problem is that neither the frequency nor the duty cycle are changeable, at least through, you might be able to go in here and resolder parts. But yeah, this is a 1 frequency and 1 duty cycle, not adjustable device. And what else is interesting over here? Let's run through the different outputs it gives us. So that was the square. And this, if I can get that on there, is the sawtooth. And the sawtooth is not bad. It's running at 0.92 peak to peak, volts, peak to peak. This is the triangular, and as you can see, it's kind of weak. It's only at 0.22 volts peak to peak. Now, this setting over here is to adjust the amplitude out, and it doesn't really do a whole lot. Okay, and then finally, the sine wave, like that. So yeah, the sine wave is also kind of weak at 0.28 volts peak to peak. What else is interesting? I think I mentioned that it's 9 volts input, and the recommended is 9 volts, and 6 to 12 is the range. This is the output. Again, this is the amplitude adjust, and you can see there's no other adjustments for, let's say, duty cycle or frequency, which is unfortunate. Let's see, there was some confusion on the instructions, which are all in Chinese. Yeah, so they have 2 capacitors. There's 2 104s and 2 103s, and they don't tell you whether it's the disc or the epoxy coated capacitors. So from the picture on the internet, I figured out which was which. And construction is rather straightforward. So overall, I would say that if you are going to teach a class and you wanted to do soldering of a basic circuit and teach some basic waveforms, I would say, for $1, I think it was $1.25 or something, this is a pretty good device. If you are looking for something to use in a project or whatever, maybe not so much, because the limitation of duty cycle and single frequency makes it, it definitely constricts the type of projects you can use it for. Let's see, what else is interesting? Yeah, I think that's about it. There's just not a lot to cover with this one. So we'll close it out here. Say thank you for watching and hope this was useful in your electronic projects.